What up, our little honeydews, and welcome back to Sippin N B, where the drinks are icy and the book talk is spicy. And we are on episode 9.15. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's the second to last episode. We're your main bitches. I'm Sam.
I'm Steph. Is it I never understand second to last versus. I guess it is second to last because the next one is the last. I never understood that.
We're on the silver
phrasing.
medal. Next is the bronze medal because it's last.
Oh, but it's
also not because it's all the setup for the next book.
Criminy. Yeah, so there's this episode which covers the nitty-gritty. I think this is the nitty-gritty of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this episode is going to be the nitty-gritty, and then the next episode is theory time, which if I'm a good podcaster, which as we know I am professional, I will write down the theories that I have as I'm going through, which we've touched on a lot of them as we go through, but like formally we can touch on them in this next episode.
Yeah, I think a lot of them come back with the 2 epilogues that there are. Because there's some things in there where it's like,
And I think our notes for which is funny because this is the most action this book has seen in terms of like big important things, but at the same time I think that the notes we have, like, we're not going to go page by page by fighting, like that's just not what we are doing. So our notes are smaller, and I think it'll just leave us enough room to discuss.
Yeah, we're more trying to cover the important stuff that happens in the fighting. Like, we know people are going to die. We're not going to play by play how every death happens, but we're going to touch on the important deaths and the important conversations and moments that happen between all the clinking of the swords.
Listen, if you want us to read these really terrible deaths, I had to think of what word I was trying to say.
I was like, why are you thinking so hard?
Because I was thinking how to spell a word, and then I went off the rails in my own head. Then I mean, we can. It could be a Patreon exclusive if we'd like it to be. But other than that, we're not going to do all that.
Fight scenes, Patreon exclusive.
Listen, sex sells according to the internet. But yeah, so we're gonna cover chapter 60 to 63 or through 63 today.
Yeah.
And then next week is our final episode, which will cover chapter 64, 65, and the 2 epilogues. So get ready for that. Yesterday we dropped episode 14. Today's 15, and we'll end on 16.
Woo!
Hurrah! But as we always do, we're going to start with the note to the reader.
Do it
after I burnt my Alani.
Yum.
Yeah, it's purple today. This
book,
not the burp. The burp was purple, 100%. This book contains themes and or discussions that some readers may find difficult to read. While there are no graphic scenes, there is mention of sexual assault, suicide, the death of children, and discussions of verbal, psychological, and physical abuse. If you need to talk with somebody about your experiences, there are people waiting to help, and the resources are found in the description down below. All right. Oh, snap, I start. Okay, cool, chapter 60. I forgot what order. I did these notes the other day, and I forgot who starts. All right,
okay. I opened them expecting to start, and I was like, oh, it's not me, it's Steph first. I'm next, okay.
So, last we left off, Holland, like, hadn't returned, so we were like, all right, cool, we just gonna move on with our lives, quote unquote. You really can't move on with your lives with impending doom looming, but whatever. So Holland arrived as Dawn painted. Oh, I love this imagery. I'm just gonna read it. Holland arrived as Dawn painted a canvas of wispy pink and orange that blended into the blue expanse. Okay, sorry, that was me.
Someone painted it.
Someone painted because I sure as heck can't. And he did not linger. He took Sarah's hand before he left, but he didn't say anything and just kind of. We all knew that he was worried, but he believed in Sarah, which. He should. He quote unquote, raised her, trained her.
It's that good dad vibe of like, I know what I trained you, so I know you're the best, but at the same time, I'm worried for you.
And it's also moments like these. Oh my god, I just had a thought.
No. Here we
I just
go.
had a thought. Okay, maybe this was a foreshadow. Remember in the last episode, previously on Sippin and Bitchin', remember when, was it me that said it? Or whatever, at the end of one of the chapters, it was just like, the fate's destruction is how you can change what happens, essentially.
Right.
What happens? I'm gonna regret saying this as it comes out of my mouth, but it seems that it's plausible. What happens if Holland sacrifices himself
Oh,
to change the course of events that
like because the fate
like
that
the
destroyed itself saving Ash's mom's
his
soul.
mom, correct?
Yeah.
But like Holland does so. Oh
Mm.
no, I regret saying it, but I do think
I
we got Victor back, right?
yeah, right.
But now we have to lose somebody.
I would okay, as horrible as it sounds, I would accept that 100 times over instead of him being a betrayer. Like,
I
if
think
I
I
had
would.
to, if
I
I
would
had
too.
to choose between him betraying them and him sacrificing himself, I would choose him sacrificing himself 100%.
Oh, but Penelope would be so.
I know.
The
It's horrible.
ramifications.
Horrible.
Oh my god, wait, and then I think we talked about it in a previous episode, but like if it turns out that they have kids and then we find out who their kids are.
I mean, Penelope's
and
pregnant. Like, JLA confirmed that. She is pregnant.
So that's what I'm saying. And then like he for the greater good, for the future of the realms, he sacrifices himself and then
Did I
Okay,
ever
that was
say
just
that
a
I
thought.
think that Willa's descended from Penelope
Yes.
and Holland? Okay.
You did to me, but I don't know if you said it on the pod.
Yeah, okay.
So
I think
here
she's
we are on the
descended
pod.
from them. Yep.
See, but I don't think Willa, I mean, she's strong-willed and like smart and stuff, but
But she sees things. She's a seer, and Penelope could see things, and
this is my thing, is she's just unemotional enough for me. Like, the impact of Holland dying wouldn't hit as hard. Like, it would because of Sarah, but like having your own
oh
kid.
yeah, no, for
I don't
Willa
know.
it wouldn't hit as hard, but that's
That's
we're
what I'm
on the
saying.
Holland and Penelope kid train, so yeah. But no, again, it would be horrible and so sad, just like Victor dying, even though now we know he's not actually dead. But at the same time,
I think she's replacing Victor. Because I think this is full circle, because we got the full circle with Victor, you get the tragic, we sob, and then another book he comes back, right? And then you got Holland, she becomes this the true primal of life, and she finally gets to see Holland again after this whole change of events. And I think we're gonna lose Holland.
See, I was always worried we were gonna lose Victor for a final time. Like the final Victor.
Either one could work, but I respectfully, JLA, listen, I know you listen to this podcast. Respectfully, I don't think I could go through losing Victor again. We haven't actually lost Holland, you know what I mean? Like, he could take one for the team. This is terrible. But like
Victor's taking one for the team, it's your turn.
Correct. Exactly. And
I couldn't handle losing Victor again either. That would be horrible.
Exactly.
Like,
anyway.
we went through the emotion of losing him and then finding out who he really is. Holland just kind of like disappeared. We didn't know what happened to him, and then we found out he was a freaking ancient. Like, ugh.
Yeah, and the fact that Ash still has to, well, I'm assuming in between this time and like the next book, like Ash figures out who, I would hope, I swear, if Sarah didn't, like, if this isn't revealed to Ash prior to this big primal blowout book, that the ancients and the fates are in like one and the same.
Oh,
like,
I know.
If they don't find that out first, that's even a bigger bomb, dude. Like,
because Poppy and them don't know about the ancients, like, do they? Like, who they are?
They only know that the ancients are like the ones that are going to rise, whatever. Yeah.
Oh man, there's so much that has to
I
go.
wonder
into
if Cass knows. Like, I wonder if Atlanteans know. Like, because they're raised with the true, quote unquote, the true history of the realms.
Yeah, but not even the primals knew the history of the ancients. Like, that was like a big secret thing. Only the true primal of life knew. And she couldn't
She had
tell.
to have told someone. Someone had to have told somebody.
There are some people. Well, there are some people that know, like some primals that are old enough that they know, but no one's talking. Like, everyone's staying hush hush about it.
Keela's dead, so respectfully. Well, I hate it here. Anyway,
theory episode here early.
Well, I had this thought like right out the gate. No, look at me go. Anyway.
Proud of you.
I try. Colas agreed to meet them in the Bonelands tomorrow when the sun was at its peak over the ruins of a sun temple.
Very
They
specific.
had, no idea what he was talking about, but Ash knew what it was, because Ash knows things, so good for him. And now they're going through the game plan for this meeting, which is, their big move to entomb him, period.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
They ain't there to chat like Colas thinks.
Correct. And so then they're talking about who's coming. Oh no, they're talking about Thanos' like Serene and like the different places in which the access points for where they're going to be meeting. So they're kind of just trying to scope it out
Strategizing.
and doing this big baddie battle. I was gonna say battle net, and that's not what I meant. Battle plan situation.
Are they getting arc books? Like,
that's what I'm saying. So then Attis says that they want to stop as many forces from getting onto land as possible. So then he tells Nectus that he'll be staying close to Sarah and Ash, but they want a quadrant of Draken on those cliffs. I'm just going to foreshadow quadrant of Draken on those cliffs. Anyway, I don't have to cover that, so it's not my
Thanks.
So then they're talking about Kin's armies and how they would have moved them through the mountains and into the Bonelands when the decision was made to meet there, and they would have done so on foot. It would have been faster than horseback, and that essentially Ash is just like, okay, so Colas can be doing that right now, but we have forces closer, and that Theon has been stationed not too far from there, and open areas, blah blah blah. Why did I highlight this? Oh, okay, I highlighted this because Theron's here. I was like, why did I highlight this little blurb? So Ash goes, and because of how dense the eastern woods are, Colas's regiments will also be well hidden as they move westward. Those in that first line will get hit the hardest and suffer the most casualties. And Theon chimes in and says, I know, but they are the closest, and we need to secure that open field to limit access to the temple. And then, Theron will be up with them, nice and hidden, and he'll stay out of the way until, Ash is saying this, until Sarah summons him, or he doesn't have a choice, which is a nice little tidbit there. And he also says that Belle will be up with us, and so will Attis. And then Attis is like, but I need to be second in line. I'm really confused how this man just kind of compartmentalizes as he does, but like, I respect it, it's fine. And essentially Attis is like, I need to be second in line. I'm going to take cars, and nods at the cousins. And then he says, Rain should be with you all. And in my head, I'm just like, Rain is the equivalent of Kieran. So like, I wouldn't want, I mean, I understand that they would all fight together, but I also am just like, I wouldn't want my Kieran to be risk of dying because who's going to take over? I mean, I know that technically Poppy has Venetta, but like, whatever. Anyway, don't want him to die.
My brain is like, I have a hard time remembering that Rain can fight sometimes because he's so mother hen about like hosting and all that stuff that I forget, oh yeah, he's a badass that can fight.
All the things that I attribute to Rain. Mother henning, feeding, sassing Sarah. That's those are the three things that I equate to Rain. So the fighting just doesn't.
It's just funny. I'm like, oh yeah, he can fight. I forgot.
And so Sarah chimes in saying that Scion shouldn't be on the second line or in the Bonelands, and Sion's like, wait, what? What the why? And she says, we need Thanos taken out, and when that happens, you will finish your ascension. You'll be vulnerable in those moments, and we may be unable to get you out. And he's like, fuck, I didn't even think of that. And Ash is like, good call. Winky, winky, smiley, smiley. The Shadowlands still need to be guarded in case Colas attacks here to draw our attention, so Scion is going to stay in the Shadowlands, and he was not happy about it. And Penelope and Ione were just like, we're ready to fight. And Ash is just like, Penelope, honey, you can't really fight. And
that's cute, but
But no. And so Sarah said they're talking about like how they haven't had any training or fighting experience. And Sarah's like, it has nothing to do with that. Eventually you will have to use the ether despite your training, which will impact the mortal realm. And she's just saying like how everyone will be on the field already fucking shit up, and like it could be the impact will be great if everyone is chiming in. And Rain chimes in and says about Layla that like she just woke up so she can't be out there, and Layla's like, you can't be serious, and Theon's like, he is, and Eos isn't arguing. And Layla goes, that's because Eos isn't a trained warrior, no offense. And Eos is like, none taken. But even if I were, I understand why I cannot be on the field. And Theon smirks. Ay, ay, ay. And Sarah just makes the point of like, you just ascended. If I would target you in battle because I knew that you
Right.
were the most vulnerable. And then she kind of just concedes at this point.
That must be so hard for them. They're like used to being right out there in the front battles fighting, and now they're like, I'm a weak baby primal. I can't fight even though I'm a
And I
primal
think,
now.
and now that they're awake, like they don't necessarily feel like a weak primal, like the reality of their situation hasn't really hit. So I'm just like, I'm sorry, but you really can't. You really can't. So the meeting continues and the plans are further established, and then Drakenblood has been drawn and sealed in basalt vials, which is major key. And then the bone chains were already deep in Oak Ambler. It's so weird seeing Oak Ambler in this book.
I know. Every time it
did.
comes up, I'm like, oh
I'm
my
like, what book am
god.
I in? What book are we even in? Oh, sorry, I just had like a whole the impact of Oak Ambler. Anyway, and finally, they're all soaking in time to get together, so they all eat dinner together. And Sarah and Ash, loved each other, and how they do. And every sigh carried with I just want to read this part. Every sigh carried with it the hum of dread, fueled by the knowledge that if we failed tomorrow, we would lose our children, each other, our future, those we cared for, everything. That's not depressing at all.
Not ominous.
Christ. Anyway, chapter 61. I'm going to read this whole opening paragraph because I just,
Yeah.
Ash and I stood in silence among the thick gnarled roots of the sweeping trees that jutted out from the sides of the rocky bluffs overlooking the coast of the sun-speckled bonelands. The absence of birds singing or even the rustle of the smallest critters moving through the heavy foliage left only the sound of salty breeze rattling the leaves. And so they're kind of taking it all in, and Sarah's just like, I don't remember this place being so creepy.
Mood.
And I was just like, and Ash says it's only that feels that way because of what took place here. And she's like, that and all the dead bodies in the ground. And she asks how many he thinks is buried here, and she says tens of thousands. And so Ash then starts kind of giving a little history lesson about the temple, and it was the same length the same as the House of Hades, and he says that it was one of the first temples erected where ancients once greeted mortals. The temple must have been a sight to behold. It was impressive even now, with its fractured walls and half-crumbling pillars, bearing the scars of war and time. The defiant roof remained, as well as several halls and some inner walls of chambers. And so they're playing this waiting game, and to no one's surprise, she's impatient, and well, so am I.
Let's get to it.
And so she's just apologizing for her feelings because, well, it's Sarah and that's how she is. And Ash is just like, you have nothing to apologize for. Like, being anxious is normal. And Ash is just like, there they are. And Thanos' fleet has been spotted. Nectus talks to her through the bond. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the bond is greater used in From Blood and Ash versus this series. I mean, I know that she's not like, this is new and like now we're just now getting into the nitty gritty, but I like that it's a continuation in From Blood and Ash, that like it's really more prevalent and we get to see kind of the impact
The
and like
dynamics of
people's
it.
essence. Yeah, I like people's essences, and I like the way that Jennifer like describes them.
Yeah, in
kind
this
of a vibe.
book, it's more of a, hey, there's this bond. We don't have time to explore it, but there's a
Yeah,
bond.
it's like ACOTAR in terms of like it was like stumbled upon, and then it's so deep rooted in their relationship, and like this, and
Right.
and that's like their romantic relationship, and this is different in terms of like it it's a bond. I mean, I don't want to say with their people, but like with people, or Drake and I'm calling Drake and people, it's fine.
Right.
With uh people that are just close to her and impact like the realms. Like it's just a deeper thing than
Yeah.
it is just like with a heartmate bond thing. Anyway, moving on. So Thanos made his choice and he'll die today, is what Ash says, because his fleets have been spotted. And Ash tells Sarah, there are no more lines to be crossed, Liesa. If you need to use the essence, do not hold back. Unleash everything you have in you to protect yourself and our children. That will not make you the kind of monster you fear. It will only make you a mother defending our babes' lives, and that is all that matters. Understood? And she says, I will not hold back. And he adds, and you will not let any of it leave a mark. And she says, I won't. And he says, that's my girl. And then I don't know why he says this, but the next time we kiss, it will be over Colus's body. And that's a choice
Well,
of words.
once my chapters come up, you'll say, hey, him and Colas are definitely somewhat alike in relation to the things they say.
Yeah. Anyway. So then she tells Nectus to burn the ships coming toward the bay, all of them, and fighting ensues. And Ash tells Sarah to kind of breathe and to conserve her energy for when Colas gets here, and how they got behind them, and they're just getting closer, and here they come. Oh, Lord.
That's my
Yeah, a
fighting
bunch of
noises.
fighting is ensuing, and Ash is telling them, not the head. We need their mouths, or at the very least their throats, intact. And Sarah's just like, whoops. And she yells to Ash that they have ancient bones, and Ash says, I see that. And the ancient bones kind of burn her left hand, and that kind of sucks for her. And they're asking where Colas is, and then doom, 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 Colas arrives. And Ash is just like, finally. I'm sorry. Finally, Ash muttered, dropping the Revenant. Period. Off the cliff. Period. Thank you, Jennifer, for that imagery. And then Nabarius shows up because, well, why not? And Nectus draws near as the Draken's battle-worn wings swept out, slowing his descent over the cliffs above. His hind legs touched down on the ridge above us, shaking the land when his fore legs lowered. Talons dug into the rocky ledge, sending soil and rock tumbling. The Draken, with his crown of immense horns arching back, turned his head toward us, snarling, his lips peeled back over sword-sharp teeth. Holy crap. Nab snarled and lowered himself, revealing and then says, wait, my mouth dropped open. There was no way, but unless I was hallucinating. The figure in crimson astride his colossal back was Colas. He likes to make an entrance, and that's all I can say about that.
It's giving fourth ring.
And it's given something. It's given something. And then Sarah is struck with a wave of disbelief, and she realizes that what Ash had said about Nabarius being as old as Colas now made sense. Nab wasn't a normal Draken. Nabarius was the bastard's version of Ash's Odin. And everything just clicks for her. And I don't think I even put that together until this very moment.
Well, I like is the next part.
The true primal of death and the true primal of life didn't ride upon horses. I should have known that, but the information had been buried with all the other stuff I learned during my ascension. My eyes widened again as another realization slammed into me. That meant that when I was ready and that cuff magically appeared, it wouldn't be a horse I summoned.
I hope we get to see that in the next book. I'm so excited.
I'm wondering, like, what does that look like?
What will her
What are
dragon look
we
like?
like? What Ugh, that'll be another tattoo. That's a thing for another time. Wait. But then, hold on. So then Poppy is the true primal of...
She'll probably get a dragon too.
That's what I'm saying. Does she not get a cuff too? Like, are
She
we all
probably
getting cuffs?
will.
Oh, anyway, they burn
Probably
Thanos'
will.
ships, and Ash is being territorial and saying, don't look at her. And Colas is just like charming that fate claimed it would not, or it would be just us meeting among, or it would just be a meeting amongst us three, but nobody fucking listens to the rules because we all knew
Yeah,
that they're
because
all...
obviously Colas followed the rules.
Yeah. And Ash says, you came here for the star. Being disgusting won't help you get what you wanted. And Colas is just like, I'm curious, what exactly made you change your mind, Seraphina? And she's like, I want this to end. Too much blood has been spilled. And Colas is just like, you've spilled far more than I. You've cost me Empress, Vestas, and kin. And she says, I have, but that is nothing compared to what you have done in all your years, or what we will both do if we continue fighting. I want this to end right now. And Colas is just like, what did I tell you, Seraphina, the last time we had the pleasure of being in each other's presence? And she says, I don't know. You talk a lot and yet speak only bullshit, so it's kind of hard to remember everything. So he says he will give me the star and I will have both of you in chains. Yeah, well. And then Takai show up, and then Ash is just like, fuck. And Ash is like, Sarah! And Nectus is getting involved, and Ash is yelling for Nectus to kind of, SOS. And Sarah's just about to use the ether, and Ash tells her, don't, it'll draw them to you. And she's like, I know. And that's what she wanted. The moment ether sparked, the Dakai clawing at Nectus froze, then lifted their heads in unison. A shadow rushed over us, and I looked up to see Aurelia. She landed near Nectus, tucking a wing over his side, fire spilling from her mouth. She turned her head, enveloping the Dakai that remained on the bluffs. Sarah rushes to Nectus' side because I fucking love her and Nectus. It's so... Ugh. And she's like, Nectus, and he's like, I'll heal. I just need a few minutes. And she says, I want you out of here. And he says, that's not going to happen.
It's cute that she tried, though.
And it was really cute. And then she tells Aurelia to, like, keep him safe until he's healed. And Belle says, oh, great, we've got more visitors. I really love Belle. She's like Tawny could fight.
Yeah.
Interesting thought.
She's also kind of like Venetta.
Yeah, but I liked the Tawny. Like, I like picturing Tawny fighting. You know what I mean?
I like it too. I'm just trying to think who else would be like Venetta, though.
What if Venetta is descended from? I don't know. Anyway, not having
whoever she's descended from. Kieran's descended from.
That's too much. Too much. I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed.
It has to be
thoughts.
some sort of seer, so maybe they come from Penelope's line too. That'd be weird.
What if they come from Penelope's line and not Willa? Like, what if Willa?
I can see that. Willa's the oldest, though, so part of me was like, what if Willa is Penelope and Holland's child?
My brain hurts. This is hurting my head. Anyway, they're fighting. We're fighting more. Yeah, there's a bunch of gross stuff, and Brain is helping Sarah fight. They're kind of going back and back, and then Ash is like, behind you, and it's kind of just like what? And then I really hope everyone just saw my whole stabbing motion in the video.
It was beautiful.
Thank you. I try. And so a bunch of fighting, and then Ethan crashed into Diaval with a thunderous clap. They were a spiral of wings and talons tearing into each other. Behind them, another Draken plunged into the ocean, sending a geyser of water shooting into the sky. Sarah staggered at the haunting sight, forcing her gaze away, and she couldn't let it get to her now. Ash prowled toward the cliff's edge, scanning the sky for Nabarius, and Sarah joined him. And Sarah says, Colas is here, and so are the rest of his armies. And the sea of crimson swept over the field, causing her heart to stutter. There were too many, especially with Theon's forces still battling the Serene. I flinched as Thanos struck Attis, knocking him into a Dakai's path. A fair-haired soldier snapped forward, blocking the Dakai from reaching Attis. Cars. It was Cars who jabbed out his blade. He was quick, but the Decai clamped down on his throat. A shudder went through her, warming her palms. Ash caught her arm barely, and she barely felt his grip as both the Decai and Cars went down. Ati stumbled and grabbed the dagger, tossing it aside. He was frozen for a second, almost like he was thinking the same thing I was. What had Cars had been thinking? He was a godling. Ati's would have likely handled the Decai, but it didn't matter. It was too late. Ati stepped back, his free hand fisted, and he turned his head toward Phanos. A scream of rage erupted from him, and he flew toward the other primal, just as two Draken spiraled to the ground below, locked in a deadly embrace, blood and fiery ether pouring out of them both. And Ash says, Crowley.
Two deaths on one page, man. What a time.
More death, more bleeding. And Sarah says, we were failing. My hands went to my stomach. Our future was slipping between our fingers. They would all die while Colas hid. Rahar, our soldiers, possibly even Attis. Then Rain and Bell, once they swarmed the bluff. Their bodies would fall just as Cars and Crowley had. Their bones would join. And then she has this realization. They're called the Bone Lands. And she looked down, the blood dripping from her fingers, darkening the soil and rock. The land was littered with those who had fallen with the ancients, the remains of gods, long since forgotten mortal warriors, primals, and dragons. And then she has the image of when she resurrected the shade in the Dining Woods. And then she tells Ash she will be right back. I swear to God, this girl is just popping off. And then she goes, the edges of her vision turn silver and gold, snapping her head back, and she screams, I'm done with this, and a scream of rage erupted from deep within her, releasing the primal essence, unleashing her will as she summoned, let me get closer to the mic, as she summoned the fallen gods and dragons. All across the field, heads turned to her. Soldiers in crimson and dark gray froze as her hands sank in through the grass and into the soil, and ether whirled down her arms. Ati's turned, and Phanos staggered back, his bloody mouth dropping open when the ether receded from his veins. Silvery white light drenched the ground, rippling from Sarah's hands. Beneath me and all around, the ground trembled and then roared. Deep fissures appeared across the sacred land, spreading like veins, opening and spewing soil and rocks into the air. Then a heartbeat or two passed, and thin bleached white... Okay, this is kind of gross. Thin bleached white fingers appeared in the clouds of dust radiating from the fissures. They dug into the disturbed soil, clawing their way free. Fleshless arms appeared from the darkness, hairless skulls, and they kept coming. A wave of bone and tattered tunics bearing the sigils of forgotten kingdoms, their bony hands lifting ancient rusted swords. The great hills deep within the forest shuddered, uprooting trees and shedding centuries of sediment until foot-long, serrated teeth became visible. Still gross. Wings of cartilage and delicate bones lifted into the air. The wind answered in a whisper, two words that echoed over and over as an army rose. Mia Liesa. Ooh, chills, but also ew.
Oh, right. They're gross yet cool chills. Yeah, so things are getting bony. It makes me think back to when Poppy and Castile and them go to Elysium and awaken these bones. And how she's like, oh, that's her army.
Parallel.
Yeah.
Parallel.
So part of me is like,
that.
is the Bone Lands where they entered when they were going there?
Poppy and Cass?
Yeah.
It must... So this is my thing, is we're gonna have to read the books again.
Darn.
But, I think... Darn, true. Right before June. I think right before June, we're gonna have to reread the last From Blood and Ash book again.
Yeah.
But I think the landmarks that... I feel like there are landmarks in these books that I don't... Like, some of them, obviously, we've picked up on, but I think that there are more that we just haven't really caught. And I think that, as things are described in From Blood and Ash, I think we'll be able to kind of marry the two. Also, we still have to read Fall of Wrath and Ruin, and that's a side note that no one needed to know, but here we are.
We say, I think, every episode at this point that we need to read it. Yeah, okay, because that's one thing I think about all the time, because this is their resting place. But when they go there, they come up and she's like, this is her army. And she like sees the vision of this moment when she's like, I'm done with this, all of this, and raises the army. So it's very, very interesting. Very interesting. Anyways, chapter 62. Things are getting bony. I'm going to read the first bit of it. It says, the army bones held still as soil continued falling. They waited for orders. They waited for me, their queen. Protect what is mine. Destroy the crimson soldiers. Destroy the crimson draken and those who came from the sea. Then return to your rest. All across the field and into the forest, the army swept forward, and dragons rose into the air, their bones creaking and grinding together. Their roars were deeper, more guttural, sending a wounded Dival fleeing for the eastern mountains. The screams that came brought a smile to my face as I rose, essence cracking from my fingertips. Across the field, a wave of red was falling into the grass, littering the ground. So, you just need an undead army. That's fine. That's fine.
Hear me out.
Yes.
I guess no, because they're beings of the realms. I was gonna say, she technically woke up the ancients. Doesn't she have favor with them? I guess not, technically. It's wishful thinking, it's fine.
Yeah. So the army is fighting for them. And she's just kind of looking across the field, and it says, rage exploded in my gut. My vision narrowed on the Draken, the realm fading into a red haze of fury. Instinct took over, and I inhaled, pulling ether from the realm. All across the field, tiny silver dots appeared and pulsed. They raced toward me in a flash, joining the crackling essence gathering around my palm. As I stepped forward, thrusting out my hand, a spinning, crackling stream of silver and gold ether erupted from my palm. The raw, primal power slammed into the pretty-haired fucker's underside. I would say poor Dival, but not
No
poor
one
Dival.
likes. Yeah, no one likes him.
So that's some raw power hitting him. It says that he hovered in the air, letting out a roar that shook the trees. She smirked, lifted an arm, and extended her middle finger. The wings of a bone dragon scattered the dark cloud. Some more fighting. And then a figure, a crimson god, appears. He was tall and slender, with hair as blonde as hers and eyes the color of citrine. He smiled at her, and it was like Colus, fake, cold. She says, who are you? And he says, he is Varys. And she's like, oh, you. And he's like, you've heard of me? She says, barely. But she grabbed him by the throat and then turned, throwing him through the opening between the pillars. His shout of surprise faded as he plummeted to the field below. The army of bones would take care of him. And Ash appears. Oh no, someone appears and says, you shouldn't have appeared alone. And you hear Ash saying she didn't. And then he's like, was that Varys being thrown out of here? And she's like, it was. And then he says, by the way, there's a whole lot of dead people doing a whole lot of killing out there. I love that. I love their banter. It's so fun.
In the middle of battle, too.
In the middle of
there's
battle.
A pause. There's just like a full send. Full send.
Yep. And so they're fighting, and then a blow connects to her jaw, knocking her head back. And the Ash is there, so that was a big mistake. Big Ripper Dipper, because he is now mad. He actually ended up catching the fist of the guy who punched her and shattering all his bones with one squeeze. So, ow. Don't anger Daddy Ash. She notices that he had been injured, and she's mad at him, like feeling all sorts of like feelings, saying, you lied, you were injured. He's like, I didn't lie, I was briefly injured. And she's like, you bled. And for her, that's enough. And now she's really mad. And she said, how did it happen? And he said, I was distracted by a certain wife who decided to go onto the battlefield. She's like, oh, sorry. And he says, the next time you do something like that, I'm going to spank you. And she says, was that supposed to be a threat of punishment? If so, it's getting the absolute opposite response. Again, in the middle of battle.
But same, girl, same.
Right? And he says he knows he can taste it.
That is like a choice. Like, honey,
that's the one time we're tasting people's
please.
emotions. It's very interesting.
Anyway.
But yes, all the flirting on the battlefield. She pictures Theron in her mind and starts summoning him because they caught a glance of Colas, and they're kind of trying to carve a path to him. And as they're nearing the archway, Colas materializes behind Ash. And Ash spun, pulling the sword back and plunging it deep into Colas's chest. And he just looks down at it, laughs, and grabs it. And Sarah tried to push forward to help, and then next thing she knows, she was moving through the air. She smacked into the wall with enough force that her spine would have broken if she'd been mortal. But still, she was concerned about the babies. And she screams, "Behind you," because Ash started to come towards her, and it says, "The true primal of death was on him in a heartbeat, gripping the front of Ash's tunic and bearing his fangs. I shoved up off my hand, desperate to intervene. And Colas said, oh, look, the bitch is already on her knees." He has some very interesting words before he goes down, and it's a
I think
choice.
he's trying to be quippy and like make a point, but the only point that he's making is he's a dipshit.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So Aurora left Ash shaking the runes as he jerked forward, bashing his head into Colas's. She started to rise, but a boot connected with her jaw. Varys is back. He says payback's a bitch. And there was not enough time for her to consider how strong he is. And then there's fighting going on, and I equivalent this to the Kool-Aid Man. This is Ash and Colas's Kool-Aid Man moment, because it says a wall suddenly exploded and Ash and Colas came through it, and all I can think is it's their Kool-Aid Man moment.
The fact that number one, it is in the notes. Number two, that is one of the only memes I know. And that is all I gotta say about that.
Are we like showing our age by referring it to the Kool-Aid Man? Because like that's not. Do they still have commercials about that? I don't see commercials ever anymore.
It's like a isn't it in Family Guy? Didn't they do a spoof in Family Guy? I mean, Kool-Aid. Is Kool-Aid still a thing?
It's like on the shelves. I just don't know if they do commercials for it anymore. Like
no, I don't.
We were younger.
I don't think half the things.
Oh yeah.
Listen, half the things that we grew up with are like not like Lucky Charms. What happened to that commercial? Let me tell you, they made a new one, but where's the jingle? There ain't no jingle anymore.
There ain't no jingle.
Apple Jacks, I think, is still a thing, but also Frosted Flakes. We don't get the whole thing.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Oh, they're not as good as they used to be. Like the cannibalism of Cinnamon Toast Crunch is not, I think, shown anymore.
Yeah, there's none. There's no.
Yeah. It's sad. You guys should go to YouTube and look up these commercials.
True.
Anyway, so Kool-Aid Man moment. They explode through the wall. By the grace of the fates, only the smallest pelted her as Ash and Colas rose towards the pitch ceiling. They're both in their primal forms. It's kind of making her have a little bit of PTSD to when they fought last time like this. And he's like, "You still think you can defeat me, nephew? I am true death. There is no primal more infinite than true death. Nothing more certain and inevitable than I. There is no bond I cannot break, no magic I cannot undo, or life I cannot take." So we're getting the villain speech. And he says, "I was going to keep you alive, chained to the foot of my throne, until I released her from her misery. Oh, how I look so forward to it, seeing every pain I inflicted on her mirrored in your features. But I see now that I will just have to settle for your death and her endless suffering." And Ash says, "Are you done talking, for fuck's sake?"
Saying what we're thinking, circa 2024.
I was just like, okay, here's the evil villain speech. Like, let's get it over with. And Kolis says, "It is you who will become nothing, and so shall." And then he looks at Sarah and he says, "I see your soul. I see their souls. She is pregnant. She will get to have children." And so it's like, ah, fuck. He knows about the babies. And this is where he gets really disturbing. He says, "I will carve them from her womb and feed them to my Decai." And Ash says, "The fuck you will." And then he says, "No, better yet, she will birth them and I will raise them as mine. They will be my gift to Satoria." And then Varys is having his input saying, "I can't kill you, but I can hurt you." And then enter Nectus. And his tail rushed across the floor, ramming into Varys. The god actually shrieked, going airborne. And he flew across the temple and out another opening. So Varys is just getting, like, thrown out of here left and right. We love a good Nectus moment. And then Sarah gets that feeling that she did about a primal dying, and she realizes that Thanos has fallen. And she can hear the Siren crying out in anguish. So there he goes. That's kind of what he gets for You're muted if you're talking to us.
I'm literally singing and it's not appropriate, so I was singing.
Just look over and see your mouth moving, and I'm like, what's going
I was going, there he goes, there he goes.
I think that's very appropriate, actually.
Yeah, no, I was sparing the listeners that jingle. Yeah, just anyway. Sorry.
Oh, now it's gonna be stuck in my head all day. That's a good one. But literally, my notes say, "LOL, bye Various," and right under that, "Oh, bye Thanos too." His is kind of tragic. He could have been on the right side of things, but he chose not to be. And then the space around her stirred as Ash's roar thundered. She spun, catching a brief glimpse of Kolis skidding across the ruined floor. Before my gaze locked with the pale blue eyes of a revenant.
Technically,
Callum
guys
smiled.
is also a word. Yeah, fuck Callum. I'm sorry. I went over that. Guys is technically a word. It's not in this situation. It's not the correct use. However, fuck Callum. Anyway, continue.
This is the first time we've seen him in a while. It's
because he's running off. Like maybe, like he was mourning the loss of his buddies over, when Sarah's family died. Like he also mourned them, and
That's true. That's true.
He was going through a lot. Okay, listen, hear me out.
Is this the first time we've seen him since that happened?
Yes, that whole thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Then I'm trying to fit in this redemption arc. You know what I'm saying? So this redemption arc of Callum, I don't know in the situation in which Callum gets his redemption arc and Holland sacrifices himself for the greater good. I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I also don't think they both could happen depending on this series of unfortunate events. So maybe Callum tries to do something, a redemption arc, but then it doesn't work and Holland has to step in. But realistically, I don't know. But low-key, I do hope that he gets reunited with Satoria.
I feel like, okay, so we know Poppy looks like Satoria, like dead ringer for Satoria. And Callum knows that. Callum obviously knows who she is. So maybe his true destruction comes too, but it's protecting Poppy that it happens.
But he is shitty to Poppy too, which is why I'm so confused.
I need to go pay more close attention, because I think he was more shitty to Cass than he ever was Poppy. Like, he maybe verbally said shit, but when it came down to it, I think he had more interaction with Cass than he did Poppy. Did someone take notes on those interactions? I'm gonna reread it anyways, but
yeah, we're just gonna reread it.
This is one of the first books that I want to do a deep dive of different color highlights for different things of how it correlates to different books, and yeah, he's gonna be a big part of this next book. I just don't know how, and it's a little worrisome.
Just a little.
But yeah, Callum's back. He says, "Miss me?" And we're all like, not sure. I know they didn't. Because he was more of an ass to Sarah because he didn't believe she was Sartoria, but he can't have any doubts about Poppy being Sartoria because they look like. Anyways, so a bone dagger juts out of Sarah, the hilt reverberating from the impact of the thrust. An ungodly heat of bone blade starts to burn her flesh. Callum is such an ass, and she says, "Were you aiming for my heart?" And he says, "I was." And she says, "Guess what? You missed." And he sighs and says, "Shit." He doesn't sound like he's really into it, honestly. He doesn't sound like his heart is into this fight.
It usually isn't.
Yeah. And she says, "And you really pissed off my husband, fucker." Callum started to turn, but the shadow snaked out, slamming into him. Twin streams of smoky ether burst through the shoulders, throwing him back several feet behind me and into a hall. Another sliced through his stomach, screaming. He flailed wildly, and he was sucked into the air. And so she yanks the bone dagger out, and she's like, "Oh, he'll come back." But then she sees that the air distorting around Callum remains. So something's happening around Callum. He fell, but the air around him is distorting. Wonder what's happening.
There's just so many things. I don't know.
Intervening. Anyways, but she's like, right now that's not my biggest problem. Colas has released Nab again. The Draken is coming out. And she screams, "Watch out!" But it was too late. Naberius raked his talons across Ash's back, cutting through his wings. He stumbled, pain flashing across his features for the briefest moment when his wings evaporated in a shadow of sparks. The scent of his blood ignited a fury in my chest, hotter and brighter than the flames of 1,000 suns. The ceiling overhead suddenly shook. Something large and heavy had landed on the roof. A crack immediately appeared. The ceiling peeled back as Nectus descended into the chamber, sinking his four legs into Nab's back. The other Draken roared in agony as Nectus lifted, carrying Nab upward. He's like, "You're done. Get out of here." Colas tells him to return to him. He returns to the cuff. Colas landed on the floor. Stone and debris slid across him. When he stalked toward Ash, he said, "I will strip the flesh from your bones, nephew. She will choke on your skin." That's really disgusting.
Oh, just wait. There's something I highlighted that I was like, ew.
I know it's all coming out. It's coming up next. But Theron appeared behind him like a hooded wraith, clasped the sides of Colas's head.
How this man just appears? You know what I'm saying? Like we're like how like you just appear, dude.
Yeah,
you don't like.
And all of a sudden Theron's like, "Here I am." Oh, his timing, man. He's something else. He's something else.
Sneaky, dude.
But Colas's body bowed and his arms went rigid. A low murmur came like a whisper of wind rolling through the chamber. Theron reached deep into Colas's mind and took his worst fears, amplifying them. Behind the painted red wings, his eyes went wide. The mist around Colas evaporated as Ash straightened, exhaling heavily and shaking off the pain. The ether slowed and Colas's mouth dropped open. His pupils dilated as the murmurs increased, feeding the waking nightmares. And he says, "No, I love you. I've always loved you." And Theron's like, "You need to knock him out now." And so she extends a hand, palm upturned toward the sky, drew upon the ancient power coursing through the veins, and throws some ether at him. He's like, "Sartoria, please." The bolt struck true, hitting Colas in the chest. He let out an ear-splitting scream, and it threw Theron back. The ether seared Colas's flesh and bones, making him convulse. He drops down, and Ash says he shut the fuck up, finally. It's fun times, man. This is fun times. This is fun times. Surprisingly, the chapter's not done. So they're checking on her wounds and making sure she's okay. They're at Oak Ambler now, chaining the bastard up. And they have stripped Colus's chest bare. They're saying we need to hurry. He's starting to twitch. His arm that's trapped is twitching. Ash drops his chains over a very sensitive part of Colus.
How?
Oh gosh. She's saying we really should have considered wearing gloves because here are these primals handling these bones. But then Colus wakes up and he smiles, transforming his two perfect features, but this is where it gets really, really disgusting. I can't. Yeah, and she snapped forward, dragging the bone over Colus's left wrist as Ash sliced into his right. Blue-tinted blood spilled over his flesh, spreading down his wide-stretched arms. The relief quickly vanished when Colus's surroundings finally sank in, and he's going crazy, saying, "I will fuck your corpses."
I read the next part. I just cannot with Ash and his fucking comebacks, dude.
I know.
So gross.
Ash is like, I'm not sure what is more perverse, the necrophilia or the incest.
Christ.
And she's like, do I have to pick one? So yeah, this is like I said, he gets really weird in the end. Really, really weird. But they're basically saying you're not gonna do shit. Like, you're gonna fall into madness. You'll be fine. Years will pass, centuries. You'll be forgotten. In Sotoria, she will be free of you. And he says, Solus will be reborn. Mark my words, the fates will decree it. They will reset the balance, and nothing, absolutely nothing in this realm beyond will stop me from having her. I will rise again as the bringer of death and destruction. So he's saying the fates will reset it. So he seems to know something. Like, I wonder if the fate who took Sotoria was the fate that was working with him, or was it just the fates in general being like, nah, we like, this is balance. We need her. Like,
it's either balance or the betrayer.
Yeah. That's what I'm wondering. And Sarah's standing over him and he's like, do it, I dare you. And she's like, you don't have to dare me. This is a pleasure. And Addis tosses another set of chains over his groin. And he's like, my bad, they slipped. And he's like, I'm gonna beat those babes from your stomach and dine on. And then Ash slams him in the throat and is like, you're done talking. And his eyes turn, becoming black pools. So he's trying to do his like mind trick on Sarah, and like it's starting to work, and then she like snaps out of it. And she's like, I'm okay. And then she asks Addis if he's partial to a spear, and he says, not exactly. And she says, good, I'm gonna need this dagger. And then she looks at him and says, if you do come back, if she is reborn, I will place this dagger in her hand myself. And it will be she who drives it through your heart. Can't wait for that moment, honestly.
I mean, truly, what a iconic moment this is gonna be.
Like, we're all gonna be reading, and it's gonna get to the part where she hands the dagger to her, and we're all gonna be like, "Oh!"
It's gonna be like two moments popped into my head. It's going to be like when Edward Cullen comes onto the screen for the first time in Twilight, but also in Spider-Man when the Spider-Man moment happens, and like that, I cry at that theater. Like, I watch the same clips over and over again, and I just cry every time. Anyway, but yeah, that'll be that moment.
Man, I remember. I'm sorry, I'm stuck on the Edward thing. I remember watching that in theaters, and like me and my friends screaming and throwing popcorn at the screen. We're so excited.
Yep, that'll do it.
Oh man, what a time. Oh, that's great. And Addis walked the spear to her, and she took it, adjusting her grip on the leather band down the center. Her muscles trembled with the need to drive it through Colus's heart and into the blood-soaked stones below him. But she raised her eyes to Ash and realized that even though he had done shit to her, it was nothing compared to what he'd done to Ash. And so she offers the spear to him.
True love.
I know. He says, are you sure? And she nodded. And so he comes forward and Doing what he said. He kisses her over Colus's body. And they exchange I love yous. And then he does the stabby stab. This is Ash sank to one knee, plunging the spear into Colus's chest. Ribs cracked and gave way. Colus jerked, his fingers clawing into the stone beneath him. But then the air stilled, the realm went quiet, Colus's presence eased away from me. Ada says, here we go, and it says, Ash's head bowed as the spear hit stone and then sank into it. The impact was a shockwave, shaking the floor and rattling the damp-looking walls. A stale lilac-smelling wind blew the wisps of hair back from my face. Dust and dirt fell from the ceilings, and red and black ether erupted from where the spear had been plunged deep into Colus's chest. Streams of essence snaked out, filling the air with thousand screams. The twisted, massive energy streaked into the north and south, then to the east and west, slamming into the walls and crawling up them. I tensed, realizing his energy was seeking a way out. If that happened, the city would be leveled. The ether rolled over the ceiling, and cracks appeared in the walls and the floor and above us. The screams continued as the celestite in the walls held firm, serving two purposes: to keep the essence of the realms out of the primal essence inside. Ether pulsed, washing the space in crimson glow. My boots sent loosened dirt, and small stones scattered when I stepped back, watching the light fade into the fissures that had formed shapes. Circles with a vertical line through them, the symbol of death, nearly the same as the mural crest. The true primal of death was nothing but bone and empty flesh, already turning gray. Ash returned to my side, taking my hand as I breathed in and felt the first real breath I'd ever taken.
For now.
Such a short-lived moment.
Yeah, well.
And then chapter 60.
3.
3, yeah. I don't know why I said 60. I looked at the number 2.
That. I didn't cover that one.
Yeah. They are out on the cliffs. Addis is collapsing the tunnel that leads to Colus's tomb. And my thought was, bury him deeper. It's not deep enough. Just go to the core of the earth and bury him there. Ash is telling her it's over. They're thinking they won for now, but Colus's promise was still haunting her steps. And the prophecy. See, they had that short live of it's done, and then they're like, but shit, the prophecy. He wants to take her home to get her checked, and then she gets this chill. She's getting goosebumps. The chill down her spine. And he's like, what's wrong? And she's like, I wasn't sure, but the unease intensified, causing her pulse to speed up. And they're kind of like, what's going on? And she's like, I don't know, but remember what Keela said about the prophecy. I need you to take us to the star. And they're like, I can do that, but I prefer if we back up a second first because you're acting weird. And she's like, no, we need to go there now. It's like, y'all, she's the true primal of life. Trust her instincts. But Addis led us through the maze of the halls forged from Shadowstone deep beneath his palace in Esseli. I kept telling myself we still had a chance to truly stop the prophecy from coming true. We entombed Colus. All we need to do now is release Sotoria. If so, Colus would remain where we put him. The ancients would stay in the ground, and Sotoria would be given a choice, something she hadn't had in far too many years. Then everything would be perfect. We could relax. Elysium would change, so with the mortal realm, Ash and I could have the future we'd spoken of that night in the throne room. But then they get deep in there, and there's something about empty pedestals in this book. Let me tell you that we like empty
You know what
pedestals.
I was thinking?
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe they get the star back and the star goes on that pedestal. As a reminder. They freeze Sotoria, whatever, and it's like a star. The star is what they, it's like a parallel kind of vibe. I don't know.
I feel like someone's gonna end up in the star. Who's gonna end up in the star?
Callum. I don't fucking know.
That'd be weird.
I don't know who they would need to hold on. You know what I mean?
I know. I feel like there's gonna be someone somehow somewhere. I don't know, but it's not gonna be something we expect. But the star is gone.
A fate. It's an ancient. They're gonna put an ancient in the star.
Only way to save Holland. I don't know. That's going to be our wildest theory. Who goes in the star? But the star is gone. The pedestal's empty. And he's like, it was here this morning. And Ash is like, I doubt something you would have misplaced. So who else knows about this room? And he says, no one. That's why I kept it here. And Sarah says that's not true. The fates know. They see all. It wouldn't matter where you hid the star. They would always be able to find it. Remember what Holland said about some of the fates wanting to wake the ancients in a way they believed could be controlled. They would need her soul to do that. And they're like, why would they need her soul for that? What do you know that you haven't told me? He's like, stop speaking to my wife that way. She's like, he's not angry with me. It's okay. And Ash says, you're telling me that you knew just about every damn thing my father was planning, but you didn't know the actual reason he put Sartoria's soul into her bloodline. And he says he put her soul there so she would be able to stop Kolos once and for all. And Sarah says it was never just about him. It's the prophecy. Ethos was trying to circumvent it, hoping Sartoria would be reborn now and marry his son long before the time period Penelope saw in her vision. And they're just like, we need to get that diamond back. And Sarah's like, I have a good idea. Who has it? And she says, I want a fate here right now, and I don't care which of you answers, but you better answer right now. And to her shock, she does. And the nipple-pierced Aiden steps out, his swirling eyes landing directly on me. Your summons was grossly impolite. You're lucky it was I. And she says, I don't give a fuck about how impolite it was. Give me the star now. She's a little demandy of these ancients, and I'm here for it. Even if it could get her killed. And he says, I see you're in a highly emotional state. Therefore, I will forgive your impudence this time. And he's also like, I see you're going to be reckless. He says to Ash, you're going to be the reckless. Oh, no, to Sarah. You're going to be the reckless one this time. Your anger is misplaced, Seraphina. It's not I who took the star. She says, I don't care. I want it back. He says, it's too late. She says, no, it isn't. And he says, yes, it is. And you know it. A part of you has always known that. Fate will always have a way. Fates always find a way, Seraphina. And she's like, yeah, because fates keep fucking things up. And I don't give a fuck at this point. Ethos had his plan. They didn't turn out exactly as he planned, but Kolos was entombed. He's been dealt with. Sartoria is Sartoria. Sarah is Sarah. That is old news. All I want is for Sartoria to be free. I love Addis. For her to choose peace or live a normal life, and don't you dare fucking deny her that. I love Addis fighting for her rights to party. Aiden says, have you ever wondered why Sartoria? There is a reason Kolos was so drawn to her. Her bloodline is old and managed to carry just enough essence no matter how many generations passed. It's the same reason you found yourself drawn to her, he says to Addis. Sartoria is a direct descendant of the first mortal created by the blood of Ethos and the first Draken. And I don't mean that in the way all mortals are descended from the first. Ethos created more than one mortal. He created several, but she descended from the first, who also happened to give birth to the first mortal children, a son, a daughter, and then a second. Sartoria descended directly from that second daughter, born in a shroud, chosen even before Kolos first saw her picking flowers for her sister's wedding, just like every single second daughter of her bloodline afterwards, until you. You and Sartoria are of the same bloodline. That is what I'm saying. Sartoria was never randomly reborn into anyone. She was always reborn into the Muriel bloodline. He told us this as if something we should have always known. And that's where your father made his mistake. And Ash says he asked for the first daughter. Ethos was brilliant. He knew what Sartoria descended from. He'd figured out what she would one day become. But for some absolute mind-numbing reason, he and Keela believed that having her soul reborn in a first daughter was the key to everything. That was why she was not reborn. To be honest, I'm surprised Ethos didn't damn the realms with that one act of stupidity. You were a first daughter, never meant to carry much essence in you, let alone embers of life. You should have died. And Ash is growling. He's like, it's just a statement of fact. First sons and daughters are never meant to be, well, much of importance in the grand scheme of things, which is why it always amuses me that mortals place so much emphasis on firstborns. But somehow, your tenacious little self survived, and here we are. And she's like, I'm actually related to the fucker Callum. And he says, distantly, but yes. And Ash says, and as interesting as this little history lesson has been, it won't change why we summoned you. We want the star. And he says, look, you succeeded in preventing full-scale war between the primals. Many gods and primals were lost, but a true war would have lasted years, if not decades or longer, so congratulations. You managed to stop the ancients from being too disturbed, but Ethos failed to stop the prophecy, as did you. And Ash is like, she didn't fail. And he says, like, okay, you both failed. Does sharing the responsibility make it easier to swallow? You could have released Satori at any moment. Her soul was placed in the star. You didn't. And she says it was too risky. And he's like, that's true. Colos would have felt her. He's had enough of her blood that every time she is reborn, he senses her. And now that he also had your blood, he would definitely felt her because a tiny part of you has mingled with her and vice versa. That means if we had released, and this is Sarah saying, that means if we had released Satoria. Oh no, this is Ada saying. He says that means if we had released Satoria now and she chose to live a mortal life, Colos would have felt her even while entombed. It may have taken him a while to get his ass free, but he would have had one big motivation to do so. And so that's where they're kind of realizing that releasing her soul wakes up Colos. So he says, Ash says she'll be reborn in the Muriel bloodline. She'll be reborn as the second daughter of the Muriel bloodline, Aiden corrected, whenever that happens. She puts her hand to her stomach as Addis follows and is confused, and he says, don't worry, you don't carry daughters. Male twins tend to run in your bloodline. Hopefully they'll turn out better than their predecessors in current company. Satoria's soul is beyond your reach now. You will need to accept that. Now we are left with only one way to prevent her from being reborn from the giver of blood and the bringer of bone, the primal of blood and ash. And they're like, yo, you're not suggesting we do that, what? Like, and he's like, and what will you do if I was? Attack me, curse me, blah, 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 go ahead. It won't change that. We'll both continue to risk safety of the realms out of selfishness to bring two babes into the realm that will eventually have babes of their own until one of them is the cause of millions of death. She'll be reborn in your bloodline, and she will carry within her the embers of life and death, touched by life and death. So we all know this. Her shroud will be that of crimson and gold. That would be so weird to give birth to that. And will bear a royal mark. And he shows them an image. It's the crown of Elm and the sword, the slightly slanted sword, the crown of life, the sword of death. She'll be the queen of flesh and fire. She will usher in the end. Her name of the true primal life on her lips. Death and destruction will follow her. And Sarah's saying, this isn't fair. I didn't want this for her. And he says she'll have no knowledge of her past life. Those who are reborn may have memories of their previous lives, but they often show as dreams or instances of deja vu, but they almost always fade as who that person has become in their new life begins to take shape. They may be the same soul and look identical to who they were before, but they are not entirely the same person. And Aiden says, you're right, nothing is predestined. There is hope. You may still be able to prevent the rise of the primals of blood and bone. A being who will not only awaken death, those in the ground, but also carry with her the absolute power. And you know what they say about absolute power. And she says she did. And he says she will likely fall to death whilst in the process of waking the ancients. And even if somehow manages to defeat death, she would be corrupted just as those in the ground were, and at much faster rate. And something about what he's saying is kind of making Sarah smile. And she's like, okay, that's all. Thanks. Bye. Then he leaves, and Addis is like, why is it just now hitting me that you are pregnant? And with twins. And then he looks at Ash and says, you let her fight while pregnant? And he says, well, I wasn't entirely thrilled with her doing so. I do not control what she does. And he's like, he's worried that they're going to listen to the fate about, like, ending the babies' lives before they're born. And they're like, no. And he says, good, you deserve the joy of parenthood and its horrors. Besides, there are other ways to prevent Satoria from being reborn. And now they're trying to figure out where Satoria could have gone. They're like, oh, she could be anywhere. And Sarah said, or they could get given it to someone. We need to find Callum. He's her brother. And then she mentions seeing, like, the air distort around him in the temple. And they're kind of like, fuck, he probably does have her. And she's thinking about having kids and about the fact that there will be no grandchildren because they have to prevent them from having kids somehow. And she's hoping maybe they'll be lucky enough to never want kids or their partners to never want kids, but it's not right or fair. Neither was what's being done to Satoria. So it's kind of like this, we're excited we're having kids, but their future is now screwed. Like, their hands tied behind their back, which obviously they cared a lot about.
Yeah, which we know, and then Poppy is like finally figuring it out, but also still kind of not fully figured it out. So
So what happens? Men can't keep it in their pants, man. So they're trying to think about where Callum could be and finding him, and she's like, I understand what it means if she's reborn, but I also know that doesn't mean ancients will awaken here. And yeah, I'm damning the lands beyond the primal veil. If they do awaken here, then we'll do everything we can to lessen the damage, and like those before us, put them back in the grounds, because I will not be a part of murdering a child or an adult of my blood. And I know you would not be able to live after doing something like that, Ash, no matter if it was carried out by our words or our hands. And he agrees. And she says, and if it happens, I'll put the dagger in her hands myself. One thing I'm not worried about is her being corrupt. And she says, power and consequences come from the will of the beholder, right? Both of you were there when Holland said it. None born from my bloodline hungered for power, none will. So we got that going for us, at least. They don't hunger for power, but they sure don't know what to do with the power once they get it. Let's get that straight. So that's one thing they don't have to worry about. And they're saying if the prophecy holds true, she won't be born until a long time from now. And the whole born of the misdeeds thing, I have a feeling she will believe herself to be mortal. So now, this is so weird, because now they're talking about Poppy. And we know they're talking about Poppy. And we know they're correct. It's just weird to, like... And this is the part where I'm like, I know, it's a book, it's fiction, like, it was written this way. But you get into these books and your mind is just like, whoa, they're talking about Poppy. That's good. Like, it feels real. It feels real. Like,
no, that's because the next book is like the worlds collide, and it's just a whole big mind fuck for us. So, the epic moment in which she hands the dagger, though. You know it's coming, dude. You know it's coming.
I'm just,
it's gonna be beautiful. Oh, if they don't have fucking art that goes with this, like, listen here, Jennifer. You have many jobs. We've tasked you with many jobs. It includes not killing. You know who not to kill. We need the fan art. You see this bookmark we got? Give us the handing of the dagger.
Oh.
Period.
Oh, yes.
Period.
That would be so good. I'm just in my head imagining Cass and Ash and Sarah in my mind, and I know that's gonna be a shit show.
And then there's Kieran and Nectus and Reaver. Oh, it'll be so great. Anyway.
It's gonna be such an intense book. Oh, it's gonna be better than another certain crossover in a book that was not that great. Anyways, hot take. So yeah, they're guessing she's gonna be mortal and living among mortals, but she's saying we need what?
No, I'm gonna let you finish this page, because then my thought will come into focus, because I think I just figured something out.
You pufferfished real quick there, like. And Sarah's now saying we need to make sure no mortals know who the true primal of life is. And she says they can believe it's you. I'll be known as the consort or whatever. If my name isn't known, she cannot speak it. She says the mortals don't need to know about me. We can have other gods answer their summons and have Rain or Rahar be known. And he's like, it will mean you are never known and you have lived long enough without being known. He says, I cannot allow that. Your name will be known as well as all you have accomplished and sacrificed.
She, remember when she was talking to Ezra and her mom, and she was just like, say my name and I will come to you. That's the full circle moment we're having here, is like when because it's from her own why didn't we get that? I didn't get that before. Why didn't that click? Because she's of her bloodline. That is why the full circle is circling, bro.
It was the bloodline thing, because I was like, oh, it's just her name. No,
because remember
her name. It's the fact
that's
of her
bloodline.
Oh my god!
And I'm pretty sure in the earlier chapter she literally said, like, I think it was her Vendentia that told her like made her come to that realization that if she said it there, whatever. But that I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I could be
No, I think you're
wrong.
right because no, like people can say her name and they'd be fine. It's the fact that Poppy is of her
Her
bloodline and she can
bloodline.
hear that she would. Oh my god! Oh my god! Jennifer.
Yep, that was my
Oh my
pufferfish moment.
gosh!
That I was like, oh, because I'm pretty sure after we read this book, I was like, wait, but we still don't understand how she woke up. Now I understand why she woke. See, rereads do help sometimes. Yep.
Oh,
Anyway, continue. You that was my brain
continue
blast.
as I just had this big brain blast moment. Okay.
Correct.
So Ash is trying to protect her name and he's being sweet. He's like, you haven't been known, you deserve to be known. And she's like, he says, I know you can't tell me you won't be hurt by this. You won't be only unknown. You'll eventually be forgotten. And she thinks about that and that does make her sad. But she says, you know me. My children will know me. Addis will and everyone else I care about will know me. And he says that isn't enough. And she says, but it is. You are enough. So now we see what happens and why she, oh my gosh. Now we see why she does this, like fully see. And yeah, that's where, oh man.
What a great brain blast to end this episode. I just want to say, oh, also, chapter 64 is now a 2-month jump in time, which we'll get
Yes.
to that in next week's episode, which is our last episode. It's the last, which I think is great because it's like a 2-month jump and then we get into the epilogue. Wow. That was
Wow.
such a great brain blast moment. And like, Jennifer.
It's the bloodline thing.
Jennifer.
It's like we knew Satoria's in her bloodline, but we really didn't know.
I
Oh,
literally didn't. I think the first time I read this, I was so overwhelmed and confused by all this information we were getting that the realization that Satoria is in her from her bloodline, and the difference was the first daughter versus the second daughter, and the blah 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 blah. Full circle.
oh man.
I honestly, what an epiphany. I'm clipping this and I'm sharing it with the class. And
That's
that's
insane.
the
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
And the fact that I like will share this with the class and the class will be like, "Hello, yeah." And I'm like,
People will be like, you're just now
"Listen."
realizing that.
Yeah.
The point
Listen.
is we got there, okay?
It's not about the journey, it's or how long the journey is, but it's
It's the journey itself.
I don't
It's
know.
something like
Anyway,
Ugh.
yeah, so one more episode, y'all, and then we're done with this book. I'm kind of sad about it.
I know, a part of me is like, oh my gosh, we're finally getting to the end. And at the same time, I'm like, oh, we're at the end.
Yeah, wild. What a wild ride, truly.
Oh,
Ugh.
man.
Yeah,
We
we're
knew
gonna take a
this
break for the
episode would
holidays
be,
too.
what?
We're taking a break for the holidays too,
Yep.
so we won't.
Big things coming out around the holidays, so yeah, we need to take a break.
Oh yeah.
It's like, we knew this would be a book that took more than one part, but I don't think any of us expected it to take 16.
That's the thing, the beauty about this though is I think when we first started this pod, I wanted it to be not like a Cliff Notes, but like a Cliff Notes version of books. But then you get into these conversations and you're just like, this is important. This is very vital for the book.
It's these conversations that are my favorite part because like otherwise I feel like we're just reading the books.
Yeah.
But I love the like reading snippets and then having these brain moments and then like talking about it, and that's my favorite part.
I do be having these brain moments. Yeah, we're gonna over the holidays while we're on this break, we're going to talk about the future of the show in terms of long form versus short form content. Which we can discuss that at a later time. But if you are enjoying these deeper dives into these books, let us know, and let us know what books maybe you want us to cover next. I know with the new with Onyx Storm coming out, I think that's the next new big release.
Yeah.
I just don't know if we're gonna have time to reread both Well, we will have time. I don't know if we'll have time to record episodes for it.
Right. I'm finishing my reread of Iron Flame right now, so like.
Yeah, so we'll see. I just had an idea, but like it'll be an offline.
That would have to be like a beginning of January kind of thing before it comes out the end of January. Or like end of December, beginning of. We'll have to talk about it. We'll talk about it and see what our schedules look like and what we decide to do.
Yeah. But anyway, sipping and bitching on everything. Hit us up. We also have a Discord server. You can also join so that we can have these brain blast moments. Well, you can listen to this, have your brain blast moment, and then come talk to us. And we'll catch you next week on the final episode of 2024 / of Born of Blood and Ash. Oh, that's so sad. Anyway, we'll catch you later, bitches. We love you.
Bye.